Hey everyone, this is Lizzie, and today I'm going to share with you how to make this Mother's Day card using the Fab Flowers stamp set. So to get started, I'm going to be making a background, and I've taken some distress watercolor cardstock. It's already cut to a standard size card front, and I'll be using the textured side. There's a textured side and a smooth side. Both work very well, but I wanted the textured side for this card. And I have masked it off with some post-it tape, and that will give me a nice almost inch border around the card panel. So I have some Distress Oxide ink in Cracked Pistachio, and I'm using one of these Clarity stamp brushes to very lightly kind of sponge on or brush on the ink. And I like these brushes because it just gives a very light layer of color, and it just, really goes on nicely. So it's just another tool to apply inks as opposed to a blending sponge. So once I have a light layer on that, I'm going to go ahead and spritz it with just some plain water, and just to let the color meld a little bit. I want it to be a little bit darker towards the bottom and fade kind of towards the top. So I also took just a wet paintbrush with some water just to kind of blend it out so there weren't any big water splotches. I'm going to dry that with my heat tool, and then I'm going to take some antique linen distressing. Now this is just regular distressing. And then I'm going to go around the edges just to kind of define it for when I take that tape off, that there's a really nice defined edge. And it also gives it sort of a little vintage look, which I like for this card. So I'll just sponge that ink around the square, and then once I have just a real light layer over that, I am going to take some gold Fine Tech paint, and I'm going to be using this sort of champagne color. I thought it went nicely with the color combination of the Cracked Pistachio and Antique Linen, and I'm just going to flick that onto the card base with a paintbrush, just so that there's some little gold specks. And then my favorite part, of course, is taking off the tape, and you can see that we have a really nicely defined edge and some sparkle with the gold paint. Alright, so now I'm going to start using the Fab Flower stamp set, and I'm going to do all the stamping that I'm going to need for this card. And in fact, I'm also going to do extra stamping because I wasn't exactly sure how many blossoms, how many stems, how many leaves I was going to need. So I wanted to have a big assortment of options so that I wouldn't have to go back and stamp anything. And then this way I have extras and I can make more cards if I want to. So I'm stamping the stems in some minty fresh ink, which is of course this beautiful mint color, and then over that for the veins of the leaves I'm using freshly cut grass. And I've loaded everything into my MISTI to kind of make stamping a little bit easier, make it a little bit quicker, since I am stamping so much. So I really like this tool for that purpose. And then I'm going to stamp several of the flowers in several different colors of ink. Again, I wasn't exactly sure what colors I was going to use or what color combinations I wanted to use, so I just stamped out a bunch. So this first set is in Ballet Slippers, which is a pretty light pink. It's one of our new inks. And then I am also going to stamp some Fresh Lavender, which is this light purple ink. And I think I'm stamping everything about twice, which is of course very easy to do with the MISTI since it's all in the same position, but that way these solid stamps get inked up really nicely and there's no little gaps where ink didn't get appropriately applied. So next I'm going to do some grape soda, which I actually didn't end up using in the final card, but again I have that as a leftover and I can make another card with it in the future. And I will just ink that up a second time so that I get a really nice impression. And then the last color that I'm going to use for the base of the flowers is Butter, which is a very lovely yellow color, very light yellow color. So once all of the flower bases are stamped, I can go ahead and stamp the layer of the petals on them. And I'm using bubblegum ink, which is a sort of mid-tone pink ink. It's very pretty. And I stamped that over the fresh lavender ink and also the ballet slippers. And then for the, let's see, I think I stamped the yellow one next. I'm using sunflower ink. And again, I've listed all of the color inks that I'm using at the top in case you are interested in the specific color combinations. And then I'm going to use sugar plum ink for the grape soda base. And here are all the stamped flowers. And I'm going to go ahead and use the coordinating dies and then die cut everything out. So next up I can start working on the arrangement of the card. So I went ahead and did that off camera so that you wouldn't have to sit through me trying to figure out exactly where to place everything. And one of the best tips I can give you for arranging flower arrangements like this is using some press and seal. So you can see I went ahead and arranged everything and then applied the press and seal, which makes everything stick to it. And then I'm going to apply liquid glue to the very back layer of the flower arrangement. And then I can go ahead and position that onto the card panel and then just push that back layer of stamps where I had applied the ink, and then I can very gently peel up the press and seal so that the remainder of the items that I still need to glue down are adhered to the press and seal, but the back layers are already adhered perfectly to the card panel. So I think this is a really easy tip, really nice tip for adhering everything down in its appropriate spot, especially when you've got lots of layers. So once I get all those stems adhered with some liquid glue, I'm going to finish and apply the next layer of stamps, which is going to be that sort of stem. So just apply some liquid glue, press it down in place, very gently peel up the press and seal and the remainder of the non-adhered stamps. And then I can just work through the layers until everything is adhered down. And this makes it really simple to do without worrying about things being misplaced. And then once everything is adhered down, I'm just going to use an acrylic block and kind of just make sure everything is nicely set. And then I should have done this before, but I didn't think about it. I used the largest fancy scalloped frame die and die cut out that panel. Now I'm going to use the Happy 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 stamp set and stamp Happy Mother's Day in some soot ink, which is a nice dark ink with kind of a brown undertone. I thought it worked nicely with this card. And then I'm going to use some gold sparkle lawn trimmings. I tied it in a bow, and then I'm going to use a glue dot. I just kind of put it on some scissors and then squish it on the back of the bow and adhere that down. And then that'll kind of finish up the card front. And then the very last thing to finish up this card is to apply some liquid glue to the card front onto some sugar plum cardstock, which is the card base. So here is the finished card. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks so much for watching. Happy Mother's Day to all you mothers out there, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!